Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Utah Lake Commission for September 28th of 2017. It's my pleasure to welcome you here today and thank you for your efforts to be here in a timely manner. We thank our host and the Utah Lake Commission. There's some goodies on the table there if you'd like something to take away the hunger pains for this early morning. Go right ahead and help yourself as we get into our agenda this morning. Have some items on our consent agenda, that being the governing board minutes for June the 22nd of 2017, and we have 3 financial statements for the month of June, July, and August of 2017. If someone's had an opportunity to read the minutes and review the financials and would care to make a motion, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second motion.
Thank you. Mayor Wimmer from Alpine made the motion to approve the consent agenda. Do I have a second then?
Second.
Seconded by Chad Argyle, Spanish Fork City. Appreciate that. Any questions on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. The minutes and financials will stand as approved. It's now my pleasure to turn the time over to our executive director for his report.
Thank you, Mayor Hatfield, and all for coming. Great attendance today. Okay, so the first part of the meeting will just be a kind of a report that you're used to, and then we'll kind of go through some of the issues and ideas that we have. So Utah Lake, it's still at a great level. It's 4 feet below full. Last summer, I think we started there, and so we're doing really good this year. Unfortunately, the bloom still lingers on the lake. We'll talk a little bit about that in a few minutes, but content-wise, it's doing really good. The upper basin reservoirs are also still reasonably full, so if we can have another good water year this year, that would be fantastic. Saratoga Springs Marina has been completed as far as its dredging portion. They're just cleaning up the last few bits of the park where they did some construction work. Anybody from Saratoga that wanted to add to that project? Not here. But it's looking fantastic down there. In fact, there's the photo of the new water development. So they have a wet pump system that resides in that building right there to the right of the docks. That's way deep. It's probably 30 feet deep, and that room fills with water, and they can pump out of there. The Utah Lake State Park has been on the docket for getting dredged for a long time now, and we're excited to hear that the RFP for that is back at state purchasing, ready to be issued again. They've rethought it a little bit. The first round of proposals came in, and the expensive problem was that there was no space anywhere that we could find nearby for the dirt to go. State Parks kind of rethought that problem and decided to put the dirt in one of the campground loops. So it'll sit there for a year or two and dry out, and then they will have a raised campground loop with some other amenities, and that's part of the master plan for the Provo Beach Resort, Provo Beach Park. So we're excited to hear about that. They've pulled the docks out of the marina already so that it's primed and ready to go for dredging sometime over the winter months, and they're crossing their fingers that they can have it dredged, ramps extended, and filled back up again by spring of this coming year. So Phragmites removal. A couple things we wanted to talk about there. We have a big year planned ahead of us. We're gonna retreat in the Powell Slough, which is the green area, and in Provo Bay. Phragmites removal is a changing science, an adapting science. Nobody really knows the best way to attempt to eradicate Phragmites. So In some parts of the lake, we see fantastic results. We'll spray it, we'll smash it, and in the coming years, we'll have maybe 10 to 20% regrowth. But there are other areas where it's coming back as bad as 100% regrowth. And so we've been talking with USU, a professor up at USU that's done her research on Phragmites removal, and we're looking at entertaining some new ideas to stay on top of it. One of those ideas is, so this shows our aerial sprays over the last 6 or 7 years. This is this last year's new treatments, as well as 2 other years. So that just that bottom tip of the lake has been the new treatment. But we were able to aerials treat and retreat about 1,500 acres this year. Moving forward, one of the problems that we've had is that the land tamers that were purchased 8 years ago or so, they get stuck in the areas that we most want to treat. So the wetter areas that are kind of in the front of our populated segments of the lakeshore, the land tamers just weren't quite geared up for that, and they went out of business 3 years ago or so, and our not poor, but our innovative county fleet manager has been cobbling together parts for the last 3 years, attempting to keep them running. And so we have approached a number of groups this year about putting together some funding to get Marshmasters. These machines are much more equipped for dealing with the wet areas. They're faster, they're a little bit wider, and just do much better in these mucky areas that really are where we want to focus our efforts, so that we can get the view shed improved in front of these communities that are right along the lake. So we're excited about those. We have Forestry, Fire and State Lands has allowed us to go to the legislature and pull a little $50,000 from their restricted account. The ISM, which is a Department of Agriculture, will be funding about half of the project. These are what they look like here. And then we're just trying to kind of finalize the remaining portion. So Forestry, Fire and State Lands. There's a third partner that I'm forgetting right now. But we're hopeful that maybe Central Utah or one of our other good partners will be able to help us with the final portion. It's about $300,000 total for 2 machines equipped with these smashers on the back. And that would allow us to really get into these areas. This map here, the one that we showed previously, everything in red is what we expect the land tamers cannot treat. So it's easily 2/3 of the lakeshore where so far we've just been kind of out of luck. We treat it, but we can't get in there and actually smash it and kind of finish that process. Another idea that we've been looking at, and this will be something that we'll partner with Forestry, Fire and State Lands, is for the foreseeable future, for the next few years maybe, while we really try to hit a couple areas hard on the lakeshore, we'd like to employ some grazing mechanisms. So this would be something that we might work on getting some electric fence or something that's temporary that could keep the cows back a little ways from the water's edge so that we don't run into E. coli issues, but get them close enough that they can graze and stay on top of the Phragmites growth in these more agricultural sections of the lake, while we hit hard those other areas that are in front of populated areas and so forth. And then once we get regrowth that we're hoping for in those areas, we can start branching down into the agriculture areas and take care of the shoreline there. Any questions on Marshmasters or anything else?
Good.
For grazing, I understand that goats work better than cows. If you're interested in that, and there's already about a 6 llamas down in Provo Bay doing their best to keep the fragment control.
Awesome.
So every time you go to Provo Bay, there's about 6 or 7 llamas along the shoreline. I don't know where they're from, but they live down there, and they're grazing. But goats work a lot better than cows.
Well, and it'll be a willing landowner partnership with whoever the ranchers are that are adjacent to the lake if it goes forward. So if they happen to want to graze one species over another, we probably wouldn't be too particular about that. Laura?
In our experience, you have to have a cow that'll get its feet wet.
Oh, interesting.
So there's some, I mean, we can help you with folks that, because we've brought cows down that won't go in the water and therefore won't graze the frag.
Dr. Kettenring from USU,
Yep.
or U of U?
USU.
She pointed out that if you could get the cows down there and then pressure them to graze that area, so enclose them in the area where you want it treated, they'll gobble it up. But if it's a passive system, they'll eat what they want before they eat the frag.
Yeah, and you have to be careful because if you've had cows that have been out in the desert and you put them in the wet, funky stuff, they have problems with it.
Interesting. Well, we will.
We can talk.
We'll work.
Yeah.
Eric, do you have any concerns with those parts of the frag area that have been sprayed and then the cattle or the goats or whatever to use grazing on it?
No. Our county guys have told it's the label for Aquaneat. It's more of a momentary thing, and the plan would be they treat it chemically, we come in and smash it, and then the regrowth is what the cows take care of rather than the dead stand. All right. Fall field trips this year, 4th grade fall field trips were an absolute hit as far as the applications were concerned. We had 16 schools. Each of those schools have multiple classes, and we were able to we graded them with the criteria for closeness and other things, and we're able to fill every slot that we have available. So we'll probably have 700 plus students down there in the 2 days that we have available at the Saratoga Springs City Marina. So I think we get as many applications for the west side of the lake as we do over at the State Park, even though it's more populated. We get interest from all sides of the lake for this fall field trip. So that's exciting. We're excited to see how that goes. Grants. So we had a couple interns this summer that were fantastic to work with. One of them helped us put in a grant for the National Park Services Rivers, Trails, and Conservation Assistance Program. It's not a dollar per se account, or grant. It is an assistance grant. So we were successful at receiving that grant. It was awarded just last week, and that will give us dedicated time from their trails planner to help us take the trail plan for Utah Lake Shoreline Trail to the next level. They'll help us find funding partners. They'll help evaluate the parcels that are along that delineated trail that we've had the county help us with. And they will help us bring together the county and all of the other partners necessary to kind of push this trail building to the next level. So we're super excited about that. And that we have them at our disposal for at least the next year. And Brandon Stockdale, the fellow that's running that program, says that if we still need him for a little while longer, they're happy to do that. So we're excited to see the trail kind of moving forward a little bit. The Utah Lake Improvement Grant. This is a grant that was issued by the legislature a couple years ago. There was some carryover last year, and that carryover will be used for 2 projects this year. The first exciting one is the state park, Utah Lake State Park, just outside of the gates. We'll be creating a non-motorized boat access into the river that can either take you out to the lake right there next to the park, or send you up the river trail. The last couple miles of Provo River are level. They're level with the lake, and so folks on paddle boards and so forth can go in either direction without much difficulty. And that'll also tie into the Provo River Delta project just to the north of that. So State Park owns some land there, And this with partnership with the county, who's going to do a major part of the heavy lifting on prep work, and Utah Mitigation Commission, who's operating that Provo River Delta project, are partnering, as well as a couple other partners. We're hoping that we could maybe get Provo City to look into that, as it'll benefit the residents. But we've reached out to your replacement for Greg, what was his name? Brian Torgerson. And we're hopeful that we can find some kind of partnership down there. It'll have a restroom, 80 parking lot stalls that won't have a fee associated with them. This is just something that folks coming down to that area will have a legitimate place to park now. So it should be a fantastic project. We're excited about that. And we're contributing a little bit as a commission that we put on our budget last year. And then we were able to find close to $30,000 on that lake improvement grant to help as a match to all of the non-state funds that are going into it. So that'll get it quite far this year. In addition to that, the Utah Lake weather sensors, these are the wind towers, or the anemometers, the wind speed measurement devices. Sam has been working on this project, talking with American Fork to get one of those sensors right out on the pier of their marina. And then the other, we're working with UDOT down at the very south end of the lake in Mesita. There's the milepost 13, there's a little parking lot down there, and that's a great southern location to get wind speed data. And so we're partnering with UDOT if we can. They've expressed interest. It's a site that they would like to see that data as well, to have that point on the south end of the lake. And then we've reached out to BYU. They have some programs for kind of internship type ideas, and we're going to get together a team of students to help us build an app so that when sailors or boaters are out on the lake, they can pull up the app and it'll let them know what the forecast is, what the current wind conditions are, and hopefully make the lake a safer place to be boating on. It's one of the things that our boaters in the past have expressed concern over, is when we're out on the lake, the wind kicks up, we're in trouble. Well, this would be a way to kind of stay on top of that and be a little safer while boating out on the lake. Do we have Mike here?
Yeah.
You have an agenda there?
I do. You ready for the technical committee report then?
You did miss H.
Yeah.
Oh,
You mentioned the app.
I missed H. So Lake Innovation Ideas. One of the big projects that we've been working on lately is trying to find some sustainable solutions for some of the issues that Utah Lake faces. Through that process, we have been working with a group called Renewable Energy Innovations, who bring kind of a new idea to the table on how to implement technology. They view nutrients and manure and some of these things that are causes for some of our water issues as a resource, and they can bring technologies to the table with private funding to implement cleanup efforts and implement greater technology that doesn't necessarily cost the ratepayers anything. That's one of the major concerns from our municipalities that I've heard is, as nutrient criteria or some of these other increases in regulation come into play, their biggest concern is not, we don't want to clean up the lake. They're all about cleaning up the lake. Their biggest concern is this could be really expensive. And so this is one of the reasons why we're excited to be working with Renewable Energy Innovations. They're probably not the only company that brings some of these technologies to the table, but they are one that has shown a great interest in producing or creating a comprehensive solution for Utah Lake. And as a result, we've offered to put together a memorandum of understanding with them to kind of help them navigate through the vast number of municipalities in Utah County, the county, some of the state regulators, to kind of help move this forward. They have funding that is available coming. I could let do we have a moment to let Randy talk about this? Randy, do you want to do kind of a brief intro?
Yeah, we do have funding coming in December of $450 million to assist us in these types of green projects. They must be sustainable. So that presents a little bit of a challenge in some areas, but not in others. And I have met with many of you already discussing opportunities where we may be able to assist the cities and the county in certain projects and areas that would meet these criteria. Having said that, this council, this board has stewardship over the lake, and I have not met and talked to everybody on this commission and board, but I'd like to, because I'd like to be sure that we spend this money in the best possible way. Our focus has been on the point sources as our primary first step, but there are many uses for this money and additional monies that can come to us if we can figure out how to make them sustainable. So I'd very much like to meet with those that I haven't met with yet and get some of your ideas how we might be able to move forward in some of these areas.
So before you on the 5th, let's see, in your packet, you'll see the MOU is listed in there. Oh, on the back of the packet, sorry, just behind the financial documents. We have looked through an MOU with our executive committee and did some edits to that to make sure everyone was comfortable with the language in there. But that's an action item for our chair to present.
Okay. Ask Mike Mills if he'd give a report from our technical committee, please.
Mayor Hadfield, could we get a vote on accepting the MOU?
The executive committee has reviewed the MOU. We've also taken it past the county attorney's office for some help on his side of the aisle. And we're going to ask for a motion from this general body to approve this memorandum of understanding and give the board the ability to execute this. So if anyone's had a chance to review it or has questions on it, now's the time to bring those questions up. Go ahead.
Well, we're ready. I can do it.
So one of the questions I had in section 1, subsection J, it looked like there was, if I'm reading this right, we're going to build an international education center for the public. Where will that be? What will that look like?
Sure. We have looked at several locations for a facility like this. We're currently working with Anderson Geneva, looking over in the video area, also in several properties in near the Provo Bay, the state beach. Would like this to be done in connection with the commission and some of its objectives with Nature Center, combining those concepts with an environmental educational center. Also, we've also just recently begun not negotiations, but relations with UVU and BYU to assist us, because we'll also provide lab space and research space in those facilities to assist us in our efforts on that.
Any other questions? Comments?
There was a gentleman over here.
Oh, I was just wondering about a few things. You said you had $450 million. Is that specifically for Utah Lake?
With the Utah Lake Initiative.
And do you know, can you say where that money is coming from, or is that still?
It's a private green fund.
It's a private green fund. And then for the education center, I have a little bit of concern about that because I'm primarily interested in the ecology of the lake. And it seems like that education center might be more focused on things like conferences and corporate, according to what page, corporate meetings and wedding venues. so I know weddings are important to you, but I would like to see, I'm not on the council either, but I would like to see it more focused on the ecology and protecting the lake if that's possible.
Facility will be approximately 150,000 square feet. It'll be big enough to accommodate any and all research, I believe, as well as community efforts. So it needs to be able to help pay for itself. It needs to have a community function to it, as well as conference meeting centers and those kinds of things. It would help. It'll be very much like the aquarium from a consumer standpoint, venue for to have that education. Because that's one of the things that's probably missing in our efforts to improve the lake, is to educate the consumers in their roles and responsibilities and stewardship. So as we look at that component, as well as the research and side of the equation, there's a balance to that, and we'd like to be able to offer that through that facility.
Yeah, because I saw that the education part was more about the technology, all the cool technologies.
That's some of it.
That's some of it, and I didn't see hardly anything about how unique and amazing Utah Lake really is. So
Right.
you guys can add that a little bit.
So as we develop our relationship with the educational side of the equation, that component will be added into the webpage.
Other comments, questions? Chris?
Yes, thank you. I'm wondering why we need the contract. Why do we need an MOU?
From our perspective, working with a group that has expressed interest, this isn't something that we would only do with one group. Rather, this is a group that has expressed an interest in helping with a comprehensive solution for water quality issues and restoration issues on the lake, and bringing private funds to the table to help with that initiative. And as a result, this is something that we would love to help them. The contract is really it's a non-binding memorandum of understanding. It's allowing us to focus our efforts in facilitation. It doesn't cost us really anything. It is us helping them meet with the right people and kind of get people excited about some of these solutions that they bring to the table. So if another company is interested in working on similar type projects, as a commission, one of our main goals is facilitating communication between partners and groups working on improving the lake. So it seemed like a really good fit for us, and it helps them, on the other hand, get through doors when they would otherwise have a very difficult time doing so.
But if we are setting up the appointment and we're going to the cities, doesn't that imply that we are really in some way connected with REI? And I haven't done any homework on it, but does that, are we in any way leaning on the cities?
No, in fact, that's a fantastic point, and that was brought up in our executive committee meeting as we looked through that. And so an additional paragraph was added right at the beginning of that memorandum of understanding, paragraph number 3. It's not titled that, but the third paragraph on the first page describes that concern of yours and points out that they are a sustainable solutions organization, but that we encourage municipalities to review it, figure out if it aligns with their goals, figure out if it aligns with their financing and their economic goals, and select those technologies that might work with them if they do.
Can I ask a follow-up question? I just want to know more about their technologies. I'm in that section 1G, and I see that they'll provide economic and sustainable products such as certified green synthetic diesel. I mean, are we talking about producing some forms of biofuels right on the lake? I mean, what does that actually look like in practice? I mean, is this a big facility that is going to be producing some form of marine fuel. I mean, I see multiple things that they could do as far as the wastewater treatment plants, but then I also read diesels and synthetic gasoline. What does that mean? I just don't know anything about the company. And is this, I'm assuming it's not a refinery or anything like that, but what is it?
Real briefly, and we probably should have them come back for a presentation maybe next meeting, to kind of go through their full presentation. But as a comprehensive solution, they would work with agriculture on the southwest side of the lake, have technology that converts manure and other waste products into biofuels, biodiesel, biogas, and then their wastewater type of technologies will produce natural gas, natural gas, right? And so it would produce all three of our major fuels in a clean, sustainable way, using material either coming in through our tributaries or material that's ag byproducts, in a way that they can either have those being used in our county or municipal vehicles, or just selling it back into the private or the open market.
Other comments, questions?
I got a question. There's a timing issue with this. Basically, we have to submit as cities representing a POTW. We have to submit a letter for extension of, the limit that we have to meet for phosphorus in 2020. This variance letter has to be into the state by December 31st of 2018. That leaves about 2 months to submit that variance. And this could be one of those areas that we might branch into when we don't know enough to be able to, or there's enough cities on board to be able to push this technology. So time is of the essence that if this group decides to adopt that, get all the cities involved and talking, so we can probably make this one of those possibilities to meet those nutrient levels. With new elections coming in, with mayors and councilmen, it's a decision that I think is going to be tough to make that deadline. So just to say, time's of the essence.
So, Mr. Chair, two questions on that. First of all, who are you and who are you with?
I'm with Springville City.
Okay. And then second thing on that, the time of the essence makes me a little nervous. That actually tends to maybe put the brakes on things, not push them forward, because usually when people say that, it's they're wanting to push something through without having it looked at very closely. But I wonder if we could have that presentation maybe and then make this kind of decision. I don't know if that's, I realize that puts it off again, but where we've got this company that wants to come in, our representative, questioned what kind of facilities are going to be. We still didn't really get an answer on what kind of facilities are going to be where. Are we going to have some kind of refinery that's going to produce these fuels on the lake, at the lake, off? I mean, where is that going to be at? So I think there were questions that weren't answered on that.
Follow up with that question. Probably one of the solutions where we have such short time is maybe extend the deadline that we have to produce that variance, maybe another 6 months instead of being December 31st. Maybe make it June, or even a whole year to wait for the technology studies from the lake, the science studies, I mean, to be able to make a better decision.
Can I respond?
Yeah, when we discussed this as a governing board, many of these same questions came up. Are we putting ourselves into a position here where we're inappropriately representing the communities, or trying to push them into an area maybe that would be without proper vetting? And so we asked specifically the county attorney to pretty much neutralize this document to the extent that it does not commit us to any. Obviously, the siting of anything along the lake is still going to require all kinds of processes and borders that are going to protect us. But if we are not willing to take some type of at least an opportunity to see if some of these technologies make sense, then in essence, we continue to have our hands tied behind our back, because a company is not going to go out and exhaust capital and invest in a process if they can't express to lenders and supporters and other kinds of people who are wanting to see this happen, that there is a relationship. Now, this isn't a marriage. This is just basically an opportunity to express our interest in exploring technology and companies that have expressed an interest to come and invest. But without a document, certainly there will be no, because everybody will say, well, what does the commission think about this? And so I know there's lots of reasons why we should be halting, but I think there's more reasons why we should be moving. And we need to be able to showcase that we're not afraid of the future, and we're not afraid of technology. Because when you look back at the solutions that we've looked at, everything from fragment removal to cart removal, it's all been a leap of faith. We've all had to get to the edge of the brink and then move forward. And so that being said, we asked the county attorney to make sure that the commission in no way, shape, or form was using this document to force or impugn anybody in any one direction. And I think it is, if you read it carefully, I think you'll find that it does not do anything other than express an interest of us moving forward. And we can wait more months, but I really don't believe time is our friend here, because we are bucking up against some interesting deadlines that are going to cause us all to want to say, are there other alternatives? Are there other options? Can we find solutions that heretofore have not been identified and put those to work? Anyway, I hope that we'll at least not be too timid and not be too reserved here. All this document does is express an interest to explore.
And in addition to that, it allows our municipalities to put the brakes on. So the waiver is forcing their hand. You know, we either spend however much money we need today to meet the 2020 regulation, and they have to decide whether they're just going to spend money today to do that by December 31st of this year, or if they see some valuable alternatives right now, which is what Juan is expressing, then they have the option to fill out that waiver application that says, hey, we're going to stop and look at some options, some technology options that may provide less expensive, more sustainable, better technologies in the future. So it really is, it's kind of doing the opposite of what it sounds like it's doing. It sounds like it's forcing us into something. It's actually allowing communities to see that there are other options out there, and thus they're going to do due diligence to review some new technologies. And that's one of the options on that waiver, is that they're reviewing other technologies that could help them resolve some of the nutrient issues that the state is presenting to them.
Do you have a comment, Brian?
Yes, I think that you've done some good vetting on this in the smaller group. I don't know what that was called again, but I think you've done some good vetting. But as a person that's voting on something, I would like to, and I'll vote for it today, but I'd like to have the presentation so we understand what we're voting on, so that group can present it to us, and then we can see what they're talking about, instead of just bringing in this MOU and say, we want you to vote on it, but we don't really understand the background behind it. So next time, if we have something like this, it'd be great to bring in the presentation before, and then we can look at it and vote on it. But that's what comments I have.
I think there's only 2 or 3. There's only, in section 2, A, B, and D that even involve us. And most of those are relevant to sharing the information that's already publicly available. I don't know where there's anything in this that commits us to spending money or anything else. It's a mutual understanding. That's all it is. I'm ready to make a motion that we approve it.
And one more comment.
Okay.
I was just asking, so it's a one-year MOU. We will have the presentation, and then there will be an ongoing, every meeting, we'll have a report from them on what's happening, so that we will know along the way. And I just wanted to clarify that we didn't have a financial burden attached to the MOU. The $450 million all comes from the private green fund.
May I comment? Many of the communities have already had this presentation. I know the Department of Natural Resources received the presentation and with some of our sister divisions. But your point is well taken. We are somewhat putting the cart before the horse, but I certainly don't believe that this document in any way, shape, or form should cause us any angst in terms of commitments, impressions that somehow we're supporting or sustaining this activity. And it certainly will not be the only MOU that we'll probably enter into as it relates to solutions along the lake. But it is a start, and I really believe that hand-wringing and everything can just continue to stall our options. We have a company here that would like to explore some opportunities. I feel strongly we need to be ready to partner up and get things done.
I have a motion on the floor by the mayor of Highland City to approve memorandum of understanding. Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Seconded by Mayor Whitmer from Alpine. Any questions on the motion? Hearing none, we will take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. I would ask that I maybe correct the signature block on this memorandum of understanding
Yes.
before it comes forward, please. I'll be happy then to sign it with the approval of this board. But Eric, I think it's necessary that our next meeting have the presentation to the group. Many of the communities have had that presentation, many of the state departments have had that presentation, but for this group, if we could maybe make a 15-20 minute presentation, and then as we go forward in the future quarters, we could have a report from time to time from this organization on what progress they're making and who they're working with. I do believe that this is a memorandum of understanding. It doesn't commit the Lake Commission anything financially. It does obligate are recognizing them as an agency that's working for solutions that we all share on the lake. And most of these paragraphs in there, if you read them all, if there's more REIs will than there is Utah Lake Commission will. And because of that, I'm comfortable in moving this forward. Thank you. Okay, now, Mr. Mills, please, after being put on the starting blocks 3 times in a row, it's your turn.
Yeah. I think I would have a false start penalty. Happy to be here. I'm as the chair of the technical committee, and happy to report that the technical committee has continued to be working towards the goals of the commission in support of your ideas and the things that the commission wants to accomplish. We met in July and then again just last week, and the participation in the meetings has really been great throughout the last 2 years. It rivals when the commission first got started. That just know that the technical committee is there and a resource, and we're always willing to discuss things and work towards accomplishing these goals. In terms of projects out on the lake, I'd like to report just briefly on carp removal. We've been ongoing out there. We just finalized our reports for the state fiscal year 2017, and we removed just over 3.1 million pounds of carp during that fiscal year. And that is actually really good considering the conditions that we were battling with low water at this time last year. And then we weren't able to ice fish all through last winter. We attempted it and just were never successful. So to be able to reach over 3 million pounds removed, it represents a great deal of work and effort out on the lake, and a lot of ingenuity also. In addition to that, Utah State University has just wrapped up the annual carp monitoring that takes place at the end of August, and then it takes them a few weeks to analyze all those data. And the numbers, the changes that we saw were quite dramatic, both in terms of number of carp in the lake and also biomass, which we measure in pounds per acre out there. We saw a 33% decrease over 2016 in pounds per acre of carp, which is dramatic. It's the greatest decrease we've had since we started monitoring the carp population in Utah Lake. When we started this, our goal was to reduce the population 75%. We've reached a reduction now of about 80% out on the lake, which is tremendous. It represents a great milestone in our carp removal program and a great accomplishment. When we started this effort, it was through a grant from the Fish and Wildlife Service in the name of June Sucker that got us started, but it's really been this board and that have supported our efforts and contributions through the legislature, through the Department of Natural Resources, and then we've leveraged federal funds through the June Sucker Recovery Program in order to keep those carp removal efforts ongoing. And we're still removing fish today, even though we've accomplished our goals in terms of reduction. It's not that we're walking away and saying mission accomplished. We still need to continue to maintain a reduced population out there. We have research ongoing on what's the best way to do that, and we're continuing to remove fish. We still are well funded. We told the legislature last year that this was that FY 2018 would be the last time we requested money, so we don't have plans to go back to the legislature. We'll continue to work with the partners of the June Sucker Recovery Program in order to fund our maintenance efforts and keep the carp population in check. In terms of changes on the lake, we had a lot of predictions going into this. Not all of them were realized, but we have seen changes in the fish community, dramatic changes, and then also an increase in the amount of submerged rooted aquatic vegetation out in the lake. The type of vegetation that provides good cover for fish, also provides great food for ducks. Like I said, when we started carp removal, it was in the name of June Sucker, but the benefits have been far-ranging and have benefited all of the species that rely on Utah Lake. So it's quite exciting. It's a great accomplishment. You can keep your eyes to the newspapers in the coming weeks as we hope to roll out some media events where we'll kind of talk about the accomplishments that have been made, our plans going forward. So it's an exciting time. It's exciting to see this come to fruition, and just a thank you to this board, because without your support, we wouldn't have been as funded as we were and wouldn't have been able to accomplish what we've been able to accomplish. So thank you.
Mike, how much longer will you continue to fish?
Well, we'll go full scale removal. We told the fishermen to just keep going. We plan to do that at least through this time next year. The plan all along was to go through November of 2018 before we shifted to a maintenance effort. We may revisit that now that we have these results and we've seen such a reduction, and maybe shift into a maintenance mode a little bit sooner. The research that also Utah State University is conducting on the maintenance strategies, we expect the final report from them to come out this spring. It will give us a little more direction.
Any questions of Mr. Mills?
Yeah.
Great report, Mike. Thank you.
Speak.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yes, Mike, the state legislature has really been very helpful in this, specifically natural resources. Are there any plans to go and just give a report on not asking for any money, but just saying thank you, and this is what we've used the money for, and this is the success that we've had?
We would like to do that. We've been reporting back through Yvonne, the fiscal analyst for that committee, and we can probably work with him to schedule something like that. I think it would be very timely to go in and...
It doesn't need to be long, but I think it would be nice to just let them know what's happened to the money and that it has been successful.
I appreciate that. We'll make that happen.
Mike, can you give us a status report on the potential either downlisting or delisting of June Sucker?
Right, so June Sucker were listed as an endangered species in 1986. One of the main reasons is because it's only found in Utah Lake. It's the only place in the world where this species of fish occurs. And so the population dwindled to the point where in the late 1990s it was estimated there were fewer than 500 individuals remaining. The June Sucker Recovery Program officially was started in 2002. Some of their efforts date back a little bit before that. but we've been able to see dramatic increases in June sucker numbers. The definition of an endangered species is that it's on the brink of extinction. June sucker are not on the brink of extinction in any way, shape, or form. We've seen tremendous population increases both in the lake, and we've been able to raise these guys in hatcheries, and they're very healthy fish. So we've been working with the Fish and Wildlife Service to downlist the species to threatened status. That would be the first step to do before the species is removed from the endangered species list. There's a recovery plan that's been drafted by the Fish and Wildlife Service, currently being reviewed by the higher-ups in the service. We would expect that probably within the next year. We wish it would move faster. We've been working on this probably for the last 2 years, but we expect to see the species evaluated, and they can't tell us that it will be downlisted, but that's certainly what we're looking for, and we would hope to accomplish that officially within the next year. They would probably strangle me if they knew I was talking about this and this is going to happen, because they can't say that at all. But if you just look at the status of the species and the improvements that have been made out there, to me it's a no-brainer that the species will be downlisted to threatened status. And hopefully within the next 5 to 10 years, it may take that long to work through their administrative hurdles, but we can remove this species from the endangered species list.
Thanks for that report, Ryan. Scott, you want to take over now, please?
Either, if you don't mind. Endangered and threatened are bureaucratic descriptions of what that means. So the definition of endangered means it's likely to become extinct in the foreseeable future. Threatened means it's likely to become endangered in the foreseeable future. So just so everybody knows what those things mean. So if it's a threatened, it means it's likely to become endangered in the foreseeable future.
Thanks. Good morning. I'm Scott Bailey with the Division of Water Quality. Erica didn't join us for the first part of the meeting today. She should be here in a little bit. But I guess I'll just touch on the two aspects that I'm involved with. One, the progress where we're at with Utah Lake study, and then also talk a little bit about the background and current conditions for the algal bloom on the lake. So last time this group met in June, we had presented a list of steering committee members, and those folks had accepted their roles and responsibilities as the steering committee. And so that put us into the next step, which was to hire, send out contracts and hire a professional facilitator to kind of conduct that work for us and interact with the steering committees, implement that stakeholder process that we've all been developing for the last 9 months or so. So the way that we've committed to doing that has taken a little bit of time. We have a master services agreement contract that pre-qualifies vendors for certain tasks. So we have water quality studies, we have stakeholder involvement, and a number of others. And this one's a stakeholder involvement component. So those renewed contracts or proposals were due at the end of the fiscal year. So we have gone through a process of evaluating those and have sent those contracts out for the contractors to sign. And they have just now been returned to our state finance folks, and they should be approved within a day or so. Once we have that, we can move forward with sending out our facilitation scope of work. We should be able to have a much more direct line of communication with the contractors, and within a limited period to have proposals back and be able to evaluate those pretty quickly. The plan is to work with the two co-chairs, Eric Gaddis and Eric Ellis, to evaluate those proposals and then make a selection for facilitator. So that's where we're at now. Hopefully, within a month or so, we have some progress on that issue. The main hang-up has been the state procurement. We've been following through that. So bloom status, we've had a number of algal bloom events this summer, not just Utah Lake. Maybe I'll just touch first on a couple of the ones that we've had statewide. Anawea Reservoir up in northern Utah. There's a water body-wide recreational warning issued in September for an algal bloom there. Ogden City had the 21st Street Pond had a recreational advisory in early September. As we've probably all heard in the news recently, Deer Creek Reservoir had a very localized event actually had some toxin detection levels. So they've been, Central Utah, been monitoring that pretty closely. I don't know if someone from Central Utah wanted to give an update on that, or if there's anything to report.
Let's just say there is nothing significant even in the size of the boot. It would have fit in the size underneath a car. And it was in a very localized area, so don't worry, steady sleep on it.
So we have been monitoring the conditions, and I know Central Utah has as
They
well.
were watching
So
it very closely.
Yep, it is a localized event. One of the more significant ones, I think statewide, was the Mount Warner Reservoir out in the Uinta Basin. This is a reservoir that has had past harmful algal blooms and actually resulted in the death of a number of livestock about 15 years ago. So Utah Department of Agriculture and Food worked with a local producer that was grazing around the shores there, implemented some mobile electric fencing to help keep the cattle out of the water and protect them from the condition. That was listed back in, given advisory back in early September. I'm not exactly sure where that is currently. I imagine the advisory is still listed. For Utah Lake, this group met in, I think it was June 22nd. And around the 19th, we had one of the new partnerships we've developed with NOAA. They have a program that's using remotely sent satellite images to kind of predict and track where algal blooms are occurring. And they sent us a note that had said, hey, it looks like you might have an algal bloom beginning in Provo Bay. So we sent some crews out on the 19th, collected some samples, and got those turned around in a couple days. And it turns out that there was an event beginning in Provo Bay. So soon after that, the health department issued a recreational advisory for the bay, and then we continued to monitor it. The bloom kind of progressed from there, just essentially migrated out of Provo Bay and then kind of bent north up towards the Provo River, and became a little bit more widespread for the first couple weeks. And then, it was the same organism was present. It was one of the more known toxin producers called Delphospermum. It's one that we haven't seen in some of our data before in Provo Bay. So we were monitoring that, and then conditions shifted a little bit where separate blooms seemed to occur in the northern end of the lake, more the one that we're more familiar with at Banazamenon, which was the primary taxon from last year's bloom. So once the advisory, at that point the advisory is extended to the lake-wide, and for the remainder of the summer, conditions just kind of fluctuated from higher concentrations at many different locations, not all at the same time, so there was a lot of variability in where and when and it was and it wasn't. And that's been continuing on throughout the summer and currently. We had a pretty big decrease in what we thought was there during the storm last week, but it again looks like it's coming back in. We don't have current results from last week. We were able to get on the lake to do our monitoring for the storm, and we were out this week. I will make a note that our ability to do weekly harmful algal bloom monitoring on Utah Lake is somewhat inhibited by our resources and personnel and finances. And we were fortunate enough to be able to partner with Brigham Young University in Zach Andrews' lab. They have some students that are currently conducting some research on the lake. And as part of their weekly monitoring at the 7 sites that they visit, they've agreed to collect harmful algal bloom samples for us. So that's been really helpful to be able to keep the information current and for us to give current information to the health department so that they can adjust their decisions as we move on. So I think, that bloom, in terms of toxin production this year, we've had almost all season long at least some level of detection for anatoxin A. We've been using those little quick 30-minute test strips that we can do, but they were all low-level detection, nothing that was significant, but even just anatoxin A having a level of detection warrants a recreational advisory. So we've been using that. We've had a few detections of microcystin, but more localized than anatoxin A before. So, the health department in Salt Lake County has also been monitoring the Jordan River and have had some observations of low-level cylinder spermopsin detections throughout the summer.
Any questions or comments for Scott? Thanks for that report, Scott, appreciate it.
One other comment. Right now in Goshen Bay, there's a sign of bacteria going on. It smells like tennis on the I was out there a couple of days ago. It's pretty thick along the eastern shore. And then in Lincoln Arena, there was a microcystin at the beginning of summer, and it was pretty much turned into a green algae. So it's not, there's no harmful toxins in that. But there's also a little bit of microcystin going on up around the region, but not very much. I don't know toxicity level.
The taxon present throughout the summer at most of the sites is fluctuated back and forth between a couple of different ones. I think that's part of what it is. I've seen some shifting.
Again, thank you, Scott. Eric, will you take over from here?
Yeah.
Next several items, please.
So the next item, item number 5 on the back side of the agenda. We have been talking and going back and forth with the idea of adding one new member to the commission, Timpanogos Special Service District. The reason for that is that they bring a unique perspective to water quality and what is being done down on the lake. They represent 10 communities. So rather than have your own private POTWs or publicly owned treatment works as members of the board, this would be adding one spot for a group that represents multiple municipalities and I think represents well treatment works in the valley. It would be an additional funding source that we could direct towards some research and things like that. But we wanted to bring it before you as a board today to kind of think about it and let us know if you would be interested. It will require that we adjust our bylaws and our articles of incorporation. And so we will need to pursue that. It's a bit of a rigorous effort to do so, and we'll need a super majority vote to adjust that at the end of the day. And so if there's interest in moving forward with that idea, we can move to the next steps, and it'll require a vote later on. But maybe Mayor Hadfield, maybe you kind of ask around and how do we gauge your interest? Are we interested? Is this something that we would like to do as a board?
Wondering if we're taking a look, if we should be looking broader and see if there are any additional partners at the same time.
Yeah.
Would be beneficial.
Okay.
As we move into this evaluation stage and are looking at the studies, I just really believe we need the voice of the POTWs here in our commission to help balance ideas and thoughts, because in the long run we may be the ideas, but they'll be the vehicle. And I think it's so important that we have that they be able to voice their opinions here at these meetings as a voting member.
Any other comments or questions about adding additional members to the board?
Is everybody interested in this? Nods of heads or?
Well, I think it makes sense.
Yeah, it does make good sense, especially as a larger area. One of these, well, it's almost half the population that's involved here in that group. So I think they'd round out the executive.
All right. Any suggestions on how we explore the option for additional membership outside of TSSD? Does anyone have any ideas of any other groups that we might consider adding membership?
Well, I think my question was prompted by the mayor here from up north. And I don't know if it's appropriate or if they even have any interest, but it seems like it should be at least a dialogue.
Okay.
We should have to see if that's a good idea.
Great. We will do that.
I don't know that any interested party should be at least considered. I mean, just to have members doesn't make sense, but if there's some group that brings some kind of benefit to us, it'd be foolish for us to overlook their potential.
So maybe what we could consider is, in the revamp of the bylaws, we add a disclaimer that additional members may be considered by the governing board moving forward as they or governing board members express interest in that addition. Would that be appropriate?
I think that'd be appropriate, but I think we should actively seek out some of these cities in South Suffolk County. I mean, our issues are their issues. We've had issues, they all go down to Salt Lake, and a large part of it, a lot of our resources are going to the north. I think we should include those mayors up in the south, for sure.
Okay.
All right.
Sam, we'll have Sam talk about our paddleboard camp and the communications plan real quick.
Well, thanks, Eric. So first, we just wanted to report back on the paddleboard program that we ran this summer. So some of you may remember we used some funding from the Commission's budget to sponsor a variety of students in coming. We actually ended up sponsoring, what was our count? 94? 96. So we were able to sponsor 96 students to attend this paddleboard summer camp from our fund that we set aside for that. So we partnered with the concessionaire out of Utah Lake State Park, Utah Paddleboards, to host this, to be able to put on a week-long camp 3 different times during the summer so that kids could come and learn about paddleboarding and water safety and spend time on Utah Lake. So here in the report, I just have 2 numbers I wanted to highlight and then some comments that were submitted via our survey that we did after the fact. The first being that 100% of respondents said they'd be interested in signing up again next year. And that was, we had out of the 100 or so kids that attended, we had about a 20% response rate on the survey. So we're really pleased to hear that. Also, on average, the kids ranked how much they enjoyed the camp, a 4.7 out of 5 for all of those responses. So we're really happy to hear they really enjoyed it. The 3 comments that I selected wanted to highlight some of the successes. This first one over here on the left, paddleboard camp was super awesome. Joe, the owner of Utah Paddleboards, was a great host, offering more than just paddleboarding to the kiddos. They were safe, learned a new skill, and had a ton of fun making new friends and playing in the sun. The Romanicks, which was one of our interns and her husband who helped, were the best. So fun, helpful, knowledgeable, organized, and had the kids' best interest in mind. We loved the paddleboarding camp. My 13-year-old son was the one who attended. We won free registration from attending and participating in the Utah Lake Festival. We did give away a few through our drawing at the festival, so we were glad to hear that was successful. Our son Adam loved it. He absolutely loved all the activities that were planned and made new friends in the process. Joe told me one day as I was dropping Adam off, I could bring my family and paddleboard for free during the camp. We totally took him up on it. And over here, it was so great. My son and his friend had a blast. The staff were so fun, and it really made them love playing at the lake. It was a great experience, and our family was all jealous of the fun they were having, so we'll definitely be back. So when we came up with this idea as the commission, we wanted to be able to do so to get people down to the lake, to help educate the kids on another fun activity, and hopefully create people who have a habit of returning to Utah Lake. So some of these comments have definitely led us to believe that we are being successful in that, and we look forward to trying to do it again this year. The next point I wanted to cover was a new addition we've made to our website. So in the past, our access points page was simply a Google map with a pin dropped on each location, and there wasn't very much information for the public. And we wanted to improve on that. So this is actually a screenshot of our new access points page hub, which shows, in this screen, we actually divided up all of the 27 public access points on the lake into 4 quadrants. If you go to the next screen, thank you, Eric. This shows the 4 quadrants in different colors. From this page, if you go back one real quick, if they click on any of these links that are hyperlinked, and then go forward 2, they will go to each individual page. So now each public access point on Utah Lake has its own dedicated web page with a plethora of information for anybody who wants to learn about that access point. First, right at the top, they'll see a slideshow of photos that they can slide through that show activities that are being done there, what the site itself looks like, and a variety of other things. Next below that, they'll see text that has a description, so it gives a general description of the site, if there's any fees. The state park was brought up. We have gasoline, thanks to Councilwoman Mark Malkovich for bringing that to my attention. We did list that the state park is the only one with gasoline for refilling their boats. Other kinds of information is listed there. Then as they scroll down the page, There is a Google map dedicated just to that access point, as well as a button below that allows them to open this map on their phone or their laptop in order to get directions directly to these access points. Now, for the larger ones, that's not as important, but some of our smaller sportsman's access points, they don't have an address. They can't type it in. It's a GPS location on the lake. And so using this PIN system and a link for them to be able to input it directly on their phones, we hope makes that a lot easier for people to access those more remote sites. And then at the bottom of each page, what took the largest portion of our time, and we were very grateful to have our interns to help with, was we made a video for each access point. Now, this video isn't just something that shows the cool things that are going on, but it actually starts by showing people physically how to get there. So we mounted a GoPro on one of our cars and drove to all 27 access points so that people could see where they need to go and what it looks like to get there. And then the video also includes a description, which I'll let you guys see, the one that we did for Utah Lake State Park. Does this work? If you go to the next one, it should in the bottom.
Sam, were you out on the hood holding the GoPro?
No. Thankfully, no. Otherwise, on some of those dirt roads, it might not have worked very well. I did load it directly into it. This one? Yeah. Try clicking on it, maybe. Interesting. Well, apparently it's... Oh, there we go.
Head west.
Just like my wife.
Really, I'm driving real fast. No, luckily, one of our interns, she learned how to use GoPro editing software to speed up things or slow things down so that we could highlight different areas.
I appreciate you stopping at that stop sign.
Yeah, I made sure it was very clear they should stop.
Yeah, exactly.
And no, I didn't drive through your state park this fast. I promise.
You would.
So now with each one, like I said, we have an audio description, which might be kind of hard to hear, but basically just covers, this is where you should start your driving. These are some of the activities. This is the concessionaire at this location. Here's some of the resources that are available. Luckily, our intern was smart enough to figure out not only how to speed things up and put the audio in, we also have the music, which you can't hear because it's nice and quiet right now.
Wakeboard and water skiing lesson, and an annual youth paddleboard summer camp. Utah's largest freshwater lake provides fishing access.
No, I didn't check if he had a license. I'm sorry. Just wanted to catch the video.
Can I make a comment while you guys are watching this? For those who don't know, my name is Jason Allen, park manager of the state park. I just really want to tell the Utah Lake Commission guys and governing board, thank you. It's been great support to the state park over the years, and the strides that have been made out on the lake and inside the state park have just been amazing over the last years. I think it's a real benefit to the public. Is really impressed with the strides overall in the lake and surrounding the lake. We really appreciate you guys. So thank you very much.
So as you can see from that, we'll get to this in a second. Basically, each of those web pages is a great resource now for anybody from the public to be able to learn more about our public access points and be able to go there and use them for their various recreational purposes. The next one that's showing on the screen is a new page we also started developing, our Utah Lake Research page. We wanted to make some of the research that's used in the past and is also being used currently for decisions on the lake to be available to the public if they are interested in learning about that. So the way we've organized that is that they can go and look up by topic. So for instance, right now I have listed harmful algal blooms, sustainable solutions, and water levels. This research document right here by Stephen Thurn is the one that we used last year for our blog post, Understanding Utah Lake Levels, to be able to educate the public on those typical fluctuations. So we're glad to have that up, and we'll be continuing to link it to other sources, like I have Central Utah Water Historic Documents page linked through there so they can see some of their historic information too. And then the final page that we've added to the website is we now have an FAQ page for the lake. So we realized a few months ago that one gap in a resource, not only for the public, but also for those agencies with whom we work, to be able to answer the questions that occur in connection with Utah Lake, is we didn't have an FAQ page. So we wanted to say thank you to all those who helped. We reached out to Central Utah Water, we reached out to Division of Water Rights, we reached out to a variety of agencies to help provide professional and well-based responses to questions that commonly arise when the public contacts us about Utah Lake. So we're really glad to have that addition to our website as well. The final item I want to hit on is just on general communications updates, and I'll go through this pretty quickly. Recently we met with a variety of PIOs. We've been trying to improve the communications that come about Utah Lake. One of that is, we mentioned in the past, a monthly media packet. Now on a monthly basis, I send an email out that has all relevant information for people around the lake, for the PIOs for the various municipalities. That covers things like the algae bloom, it covers seasonal recreational topics, events that are coming up at the lake, and we provide sample text that they can put on social media, hashtags, links, videos, and photos for them. And the feedback overall was very good. There were a few critiques that we took in that we'll be continuing to adapt and improve that. But this meeting went really well. We're really grateful to have the help of the various public information officers there. I will put the caveat for those that may not have heard anything about this from your PIOs. We'd love to have them all in attendance. By all means, it's not required in any way, but the more input we've had, the better the conversations have gone and have helped steer in a way that is beneficial for more people. So for those of you that are on the board, if there's somebody that you'd like to have in attendance, you can definitely have them get in touch with me. I'd be more than willing to bring them up to speed on what our process is. So, thank you. Originally, when it was first started, they were meeting almost on a monthly basis. We've now changed tactics to, on a monthly basis, sending out this email, and on special cases, other contact. But we meet twice a year. Right now, we've planned those meetings for April and September. I don't have the exact dates for this coming year yet, but we'll have those and make those available to the governing board if you'd like, so that you can designate somebody to come if you so choose. I know that specifically from Saratoga Springs, David's been a great help. He's been attending regularly and helping us a lot. So we continue to have that success, and we appreciate all of the public information officers who are helping us. And the last point is just for communications to the public, something we're going to be developing is a 4-part blog series, one for each season of the year, fall, winter, spring, and summer, to publish what kinds of activities go down at the lake. So we'll be finding people who love Utah Lake for whatever it is they do, whether they boat, whether they paraglide, they hunt, they fish, they paddleboard. We're going to be kind of interviewing and putting into these posts what it is that these people love about the lake and why they go there at this time of year, whichever of the 4 seasons that may be, and publishing that so that people can then start learning about some of the other activities. For instance, in the summer with an algae bloom, that somewhat crippled, well, I shouldn't say somewhat, that crippled the recreation on the lake, and it heavily impacted the concessionaires and the marinas. So we want to be able to provide this not only during a time that's trouble like that during the algae bloom, but also during winter, where the lake is heavily underutilized and there's many activities that can be done there. So we'll definitely be moving forward with that, and I'm excited to see where that takes us with helping the public understand better how they can use Utah Lake as a recreation resource.
Thanks for that report, Sam. Are there questions or comments for Sam? Thank you. Remind everyone, our next 5 board meetings are quarterly meetings of the governing board. November the 16th of this year, and we have March, June, September, November of next year for their long-range planning calendar. Appreciate having that. Our final today is a comments from the public or from the board members. Go ahead.
As far as the...
Would you tell us who you are, please?
Dr. David Richards. I work for the Wasatch Front Water Quality Council.
Okay.
And I've been doing research on Utah Lake for several years now, and analyzing data for probably 8 years now for Utah Lake.
Thank you.
And so as far as the governing board membership, if you're looking for additional members, I would highly recommend the group that I'm working for, the Wasatch Front Water Quality Council. We're doing pretty much one of the most intensive ecological researches on the lake that's been done in quite a long time. We're collaborating with the WQ and the universities as well, and all other interested parties. So if you're interested in another additional member, we'd be glad to be part of that.
Thank you. You had a comment, Sam?
Yeah, there's one thing I forgot. I apologize. In my continued work with public information officers and recreation people, I was able to secure women's volleyball tickets for BYU. So I wanted to provide that if any of you are interested as a thank you for your efforts, whether that's for yourselves or your staff or family or friends you'd like to give them to. We have quite a few. Each of these vouchers is worth 2 tickets, and they still have, I think, 5 or 6 home games this season. So if any of you would like some, please just find me afterwards. I'd be more than willing to give you some as a thank you for all of your efforts on our board.
Thank you, Sam. Yes, sir.
My name is Elliot. I'm with the Utah Outdoors. I'm an event organizer. We like to kayak your rivers here in Utah County. We have 2 issues. One is the lower Provo River. There's a lot of deadfall in there, and oftentimes we can't get in there. So I call that to your attention, any help you could provide in removing the deadfall. It's not all year long, but certain times of the year. from a navigation safety perspective. And then on the other end, on the Jordan River, we'd love to have access point as far north as possible. Right now we're taking out at 1500 north. But the river is wonderful for another 4.5 miles. But we can't get out at the Jordan Arrows. We'd like to take out in that area, but there's no access point. So any assistance you can provide in those two areas would be greatly appreciated by those of us who recreate in your wonderful area. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I'm Rick Cox. I worked on the master plan many years ago. But prior to that, I was involved in some of the creation meetings for the commission. And there were some notes and minutes from there that talked about membership. And it might be worthwhile for Eric to dig those out and see what the logic was for who they were selecting at the time and who they were inviting to participate. I know at that time they did talk about the sewer treatment plants being invited to participate. At that time they made the decision not to. You may want to look at those notes.
Good suggestion, thank you. Any comments from board members?
I would, as you look at membership, I would suggest maybe you look at elected officials from Salt Lake like you are, but I would look at an appointment from our COG. If it was appointed by our COG, which we do, to represent Salt Lake in different places, it would institutionalize it more, and I think you would have more of a consistency of somebody coming. I'd be happy to do that as well if that's what happened. But I think the COG would offer some stability.
Okay, good comments. Any members of the governing board? Motion to adjourn. All right, I remind you, our next meeting will be November the 16th in this location at 7:30 a.m. And with that motion, we will stand adjourned.